All right, so we've been talking, today we're looking at more of a deeper dive into statistics where we talk about measures of center and measures of variation. Okay? Your measures of center, which you might want to write down somewhere because you need to know this. You might want your pencil in your hand, writing this down on your notes. The measures of center. Measures of center. You just have to write mean, mode, and median. Just somewhere in the margins. Mean, median, and mode are your measures of center. They tell us what is the typical answer or typical score. So last week on your homework, you might need to write that it's the measures of center. Because last week on your homework, it asked what's the typical. Well, you need to know what do you need to do to find typical. Well, to find typical, you either can find the mean or the median. That's considered your measures of center. What's the center of your data? Then we have what's called variation. I'll let you finish writing that before I keep talking. Variation talks about how spread out or different the data is. And when we're looking for the spread or the difference in the data, we're either finding the range, we're finding IQR, or we're finding MAD. And we're going to write down the steps to these in a minute. So all you really need to know is that range, IQR, and MAD talk about the variation, the spread of data. So when I look at your test scores, and I've got somebody who made 100, and then I've got somebody who made a 26, that's a big difference in scores, right? Between a 26 and a 100, that's 74-point difference. Okay, that's a range, that's a big spread. That tells me that we were all over the place. But if everybody's in the 80s and 90s range, that means that we're all on the same page and we're good and we're rocking and rolling and we can go on. Okay, so variation talks about the spread. Mean and median tells me the center.
What's variation sound like? What's the root word to that?
Vary.
Vary. What's something that varies? What's it mean to vary?
Have like
Different options, wide range. Yeah.
I used in first period, I used the example of shoe sizes. You go to a shoe store and they sell baby shoes all the way up to grown men boot sizes. There's a big range or a variation of sizes. And not only that, there's a variation of types of shoes. If you go to like the shoe station, the new shoe store in Warner Robins next to Hobby Lobby, you walk in there, there's tons of a variety of shoes, all kinds. Tennis shoes, flip-flops, sandals, Crocs, boots, you name it, they got it. Okay, and different brands, so it varies. There's a range. So we're going to use this information to help us compare those populations and samples we've been talking about. Okay? And so when we do that, we've got to know which one exactly do we need to be looking at. So we're going to use the mean and the mean absolute deviation, which is also known as the MAD, to compare two populations when the distributions are symmetric. If I could spell symmetric correctly. What does it mean for something to be symmetric? or symmetrical? It has symmetry. What does it mean? What does symmetry mean? If I draw a line of symmetry,
Well, it could be a vertical line, but what's that vertical line going through, or what is it? How is it divided? Whatever it's divided. I guess that's the way to ask it.
alright, so Maylee says it's the same on both sides. So like, if I,
Y'all ever seen SpongeBob? Anybody? Okay. You ever watch the video, the one where he has the anchor arms, blow up arms? Okay. You ever seen that? Well, he's got these big old blow up arms. They're like balloons. He sits there and blows them up. They're real big. Okay. But he has them both blown up the same size. Okay. They look the same on both sides. Okay. But at one point, one of them got really small and teeny tiny. One was still huge. Okay. That was asymmetrical. We call that asymmetrical. When they're both exactly the same, that's symmetrical.
so like, or if you like take Nikki and you split him in half, the right side and the left side are the same, so they're symmetrical. Not symmetrical, which we call asymmetrical, because the prefix a means not. Okay? So symmetrical means that they're going to be the same, or at least roughly the same. So if we don't know that, we need to write that. Alright? Same on, we're going to use Maylee's definition. Same on both sides. Or it appears to be the same on both sides. It may not be exactly the same, but the gist of it looks very similar. And so what we're going to end up doing is looking at some different graphs and being able to tell if it's symmetrical. And then if it's symmetrical, we're going to use the mean or the MAD to compare. This is going to be very important for part of your questions on that lab. So you're going to need to study this page right here. Hint, hint, hint. We're going to use the median and the interquartile range, which we also call the what? Interquartile range, how do we say it short? IQR. We're going to use those if the distribution of the data is what we call skewed. And we talked about that last year, something being skewed. So we're going to refresh your brain on what that is in case you don't remember it. So I provided you with some pictures down here so that you can see the difference in a symmetrical graph and a skewed graph. So if you look down here, do you see how on this symmetrical graph it makes kind of like a hill? Where the left side is very similar to the right side and it makes that pretty little curve. Do you see that? And do you see, like, if we look at the box and whiskers, if you look at the arms, they're the same length. They look the same on the left side as the right side. That's symmetrical. When they're not, like SpongeBob, like what Coach Jones was talking about with SpongeBob, when one arm was really big and one arm was really small, that's called skewed. That's when there's this difference. Last year, I think of it like a dinosaur. And if you didn't, you remember my dinosaur? All right, if y'all, some of y'all were not blessed with seeing my beautiful dinosaur that I draw, okay? But if you look at this, to me, okay, there's the tail of the dinosaur, and then there's his arm. Okay, there's my dinosaur, rawr, my little T-Rex. Okay, the tail of the dinosaur is on the right side. So if there's a tail, it's skewed right. But over here, if I make this dinosaur, roar. Okay? What side is his tail on? The left. Okay? If it is skewed, we use median and IQR. If it's symmetrical, what do we use? What did our notes say? If it's symmetrical, which ones are we going to use?
The median.
If it's symmetrical, we're going to use the mean and the MAD if it's symmetrical. If it's skewed, which one are we going to use? Median and IQR. Okay? These box and whisker plots don't show the best skewedness, so if we wanted to draw another picture up underneath it, what it would look like is one arm would be way shorter than the other. Okay, you see how this has a really long right arm? That's a better, to me this picture doesn't show it the best, it's kind of hard to see. But this would be considered skewed right. I might withdraw that so that you know. And then if it has a really long left arm, that's called skewed left. Look for the tail. Or it looks like a little minnow to me. And there's his tail. And there's his tail. Like a tadpole, yeah. The tadpole before it grows to be the monster. T-Rex. Okay? This is important. You have to know this. Your formula sheets do not tell you this information. This is going to take some studying before Thursday. This will be on your test Thursday. Do you understand that? What's going to be on your test Thursday? This. Okay? And then this part down here kind of just refreshes us on how we find the different measures of sister and variation. So what's another word for mean? Find the, thank you Connor, find the average. And you do this every week when you average your homework grades. How do we average your homework grades? What do you have to do?
What we divide by? How many grades? Well, it's yeah, pretty much, yeah, let's go with that.
Alright, so we add all the numbers up, and then we divide by the number of numbers you added. This is going to help you on your homework tonight in case you don't remember how to do it. You should know how to do mean by now. We've been doing it a lot. MAD, we learned last year. Okay? There's a lot of steps to it. They're not hard steps. They just require you to write, which y'all don't like to do. Okay? MAD is the mean of distances, the mean of the distance of each point from the mean. And that sounds funny, but all you do is follow these 3 steps. Your first step is to find the mean. The second step is to subtract each point from the mean. And we're going to practice this so you can see what it's like. And then we're going to find the mean of those differences. Those are the 3 steps. How do I find range? Biggest minus smallest, or we in math we call it the maximum minus the minimum. Maximum minus the minimum. Your formula sheet does not tell you that. Okay? So that's one that you have to have memorized. How do I find IQR? Flavia? Q3 minus Q1. And the formula sheet tells us this, but does it tell us how to find Q3 and Q1? No, that's something you have to know how to do. These are the steps for finding Q3 and Q1. Find the median. Then you have to find the median of the lower half, find the median of the upper half, and then find the range between the two. Okay? So we're going to put that into practice when we flip it over. What is the very first thing I should do when I'm looking at things like this, Gracie? Put them in order from least to greatest. It's the first thing you should do. Whether you're finding the mean, median, mode, range, interquartile range, whatever it is, put it in order. This requires you writing things down. Your homework tonight, if I do not see, when we come around to check for completion, if I do not see where you wrote it down in order, it's an automatic 0 for completion. Do you understand? Put these numbers in order. Well, I'm going to go ahead and put them in order for time's sake for us, but I hope we all know what numbers are bigger and what numbers are smaller. We can do that, right? Okay. For time's sake, I'm going to go ahead and write them down for us so that we can move on. And usually what I do is I like to try on my paper to space it out really far so that in case I forgot a number, I can come back in there and squeeze it in. So I had 12 numbers in my original list. I should have 12 numbers in my ordered list. And that's something I do too. I go back and I count. I'm 30 years old and I still have to go back and count because 9 times out of 10 I always forget a number.
So what happens if I have 12 and I end up with 11? Or if I have 12 and I end up with 13? Somewhere I messed up. I'm transferred.
Yeah. And it happens to the best of us. Okay? Alright. So now that I have my numbers in order, I can tackle all of this. Which one we want to start with? Mean? Okay. Remind me again, how do I find the mean? Nolan.
Add them all up.
And then what?
Then what?
By what?
The number.
How many numbers I have. So, we would add all of these up. And for time's sake, I'm going to go ahead and just tell you what it is. Alright, I would add all those up. And what I normally do is I put them in on the fraction number. And I use the fraction key. And I put all my numbers that I'm adding on the top. And then I put the number I'm dividing by on the bottom. Because doesn't fraction mean division?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's what I like to do. Okay? So when I add all those numbers up, my sum of the numbers was 756. What am I dividing by? Why 12? That's how many numbers I have. So I'm going to divide it by 12. Just so you know, on your homework, tomorrow when you turn it in, you're going to have to put this in. You're going to have to tell me what the sum was over the number. So you need to make sure you show your work. So when I divide that out, I get 63 as my mean. Good.
Now when I do this problem, what I do is I type in the calculator, 8 equals, then I divide by 12. Okay, is that okay to do? Okay, is Miss Pittman's way okay to do? Doesn't matter which way you do. No. The important thing is, you get your total, divide by the total number. Doesn't matter how you get there. Okay, you can go either way. Doesn't matter. As long as you get that right answer over here.
Alright, range. How do I find range? Everybody should have their hand raised because it's on this paper right here. How do I find range? Harrison. Look at the paper if you need to. Range.
Yes, sir.
It should be the third dot.
For what? Hands.
1, 2, 3, third dot. Maximum minus the minimum. Maximum minus the minimum. What's the maximum here? 99. The minimum is minus 11, which gives me 88. Good mental math. Good job. All right, median is the, Fabia? It's the middle. If I didn't know, I could go flip back over to my sheet, and it tells me that the median is the middle. Okay? So I would just go back and forth. Back and forth. Now I have an even amount of numbers, and every time I have an even amount of numbers, I end up with two numbers in the middle. What do I have to do with those two numbers in the middle, Parker? I have to find the average of the two numbers. So I have to do 62 plus 63 divided by 2, and I get 62.5. Did you hit enter and then divide? You have to do that because it does order of operations, and then it ends up dividing 63 first. Okay, so there's our median. We're going to hold off on math for a second, and we're going to go to mode. What does mode mean? It's not on your paper, but you should know this by now. Most often. So which number is repeated the most often? So if we go back and look at our list, what number's repeated the most often? None. Is it okay to have no mode? Yeah. Sometimes you're not going to, you can't force a number in the data. Okay? The data is just, it is what it is. Like your test scores. It is what it is. Like I can't go in and change it. So it's okay to have no or none mode. Is it okay to have more than one mode? Yes. Okay. IQR, interquartile range, is what and what? Everybody should be looking back at your paper if you don't know the answer. That's how we learn.
We wrote it down. It should be on the front page. If you, I should write it down. I told you to write it.
Okay, on the count of 3, you're all going to tell me 1, 2, 3.
Quartile
Q3.
Q3, y'all were a little delayed in that, but Q3 minus Q1. You've got to get in the habit of looking back in your notes.
Just like Fabia said, Q stands for quartile.
Okay? So Q3 and Q1, if I look back on my notes page, Q1 is the lower half, Q3 is the upper half. So if I look over here, with this, you don't include the median. Okay? So was 62 the median? Was 62 our median? Go back and look at your paper. What was your median? It was 62.5. We can't include that number, but we got to include everything below it. Okay? Everything below it. Now we got to, according to our notes, we find the median of that lower half. So we go back and forth, back and forth. Oh darn, I got two numbers. What do I do when I have two numbers?
Add them together and divide them by 2.
So I gotta add those two together, divide it by 2. 41 plus 55, divided by 2, gives me a Q1 of, so my Q1 is 48. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. This is the upper half because those are the higher numbers. Back and forth, back and forth. Oh darn, I've got two numbers in the middle. So I got to add them together and divide by 2. Or if you just know what number is in the middle between 91 and 93, 92. So Q3 is 92. So I can plug it in. 92 minus 48 gives me an IQR of what? 44. Okay? Are we good so far? All of this should be a review. Now we're looking at MAD. So we should be looking back, or if we have our paper out like this, we can see both pages at the same time. I've got the directions for MAD on the second bullet point. Do you see that down here? The directions for MAD. What's my first step? Find the mean. Have we already done that? Oh, good. Okay. What's step 2? Subtract each point from the mean. This requires you writing it down. You have to write it down or you're not going to get it correct. So if we have to subtract from each point, guess what we need to write down? We need to write down each point. We need to make a list of all the data points that we have. So we're going to take our list from up here and write them down. So I've got 11, 19, 41, 55. You've got to also keep it organized. I've got 61, 62, 63, 65. $91, $93, $96, $99. That step tells me I have to subtract the mean from each one of those. So I have to do subtraction 12 times. So I have to do, what was our mean that we found? 63. So I have to do 11 minus 63. What do you get?
-2.
Okay, but because we're talking about distance, because what we're trying to do is we're trying to figure out how far is each point away from the mean. Remember, distance is always positive. So we're going to keep the positive number. So 11 minus 63 was negative 52. But we want the positive, the absolute value of that, so it's just 52. And then we would take and do 19 minus 63. What do you get, Parker?
I was going to say, can you explain that one more time?
For the math? The goal is to see how far is each one of these points away from the mean. So 11 is 52 numbers away from the mean. 19 is 44 numbers away from 63. That's what it's talking about. Alright, so then 41 minus 63. 22. 55 minus 63. Bobia. 8. Liam, you do 61. Peyton, you do 62. Nolan, you do 63. Austin, you do 65. Zoe, you do 91. Parker, you do 93. Harrison, you do 96. Connor, you do 99. Do it, quick. I need those numbers.
Far away.
Those numbers.
Yeah.
Can we get
Alright,
those?
who was 61?
Subtract.
Liam, what was it? Who was 62? Peyton. So 63 minus 62. Just one. Nolan, what were you? 63 minus 63. 0. Good. Who's 65? Austin, what'd you get? Huh? 65 minus 63. You're just subtracting it every time. Alright, 91. 93.
30.
96. Harrison. Honey, you just do 96 minus 63 in your calculator, guys. It's not that difficult. We just are subtracting. 33. And then Connor.
34.
No.
What?
99 minus 63.
99 minus 63.
36.
Thank you. Once we have all of those numbers, we look at step 3. What does it say? Find the mean of the differences. So all those numbers we just got, we got to add them all up and then what? Divide by how many numbers there are. And how many numbers are there? 12. So I add all these numbers up and then I divide it by 12. So when I added it up, I got 258. I'm going to divide it by 12. Gives me 21.5. What that means is that typically, going back to that measures of center means typically, each number is about 21.5 spaces away from the mean. Okay? Which is a really big range. Which means there was a wide variety. Which means that our mean was not very representative of the numbers. Okay? You want a small MAD. Is this a small MAD? No, this is really spread out. It's not going to be the greatest thing for us. Your homework is just like this tonight. Do you see how much work we showed? You need to show that on your homework tonight. Speaking of your homework tonight, I need you to look on Mondays, just so that you know, so that it doesn't get things messed up. Number 1 on tonight's homework. You might want to make a note of this. Number 1 on tonight's homework. You round to the nearest whole number. Number 1 on tonight's homework. Round to the nearest whole number. Round to the nearest whole number.
Yeah, I also got told because I said, we're not supposed to do, we could answer one more.
Number 5 on tonight's homework. Round to the 10th place. The 10th place. Number 5. Round to the 10th. Number 1. We round it to the whole number. Number 5. We round to the 10th place. Okay?
You get 2 of them.
All right.